Welcome back to another episode of Two Marine Dads, where we talk about the journey of life, politics, kids, and family, as seen from the perspective of two United States Marines.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. Welcome back to Two Marine Dads podcast, episode 16. And today we're going to talk about the border again, just because of some of the stuff that's been going on in the news as of late, and the supposed non-crisis crisis of hundreds of thousands of people flooding the U.S.-Mexico border. Not all Mexicans and not all rapists and murderers, but a lot of people nonetheless. A little shade there at the whole Trump, rapist and murderer thing for anybody thinking that I'm being serious. Please don't.
Yeah, we assume some are good people.
And it isn't exaggerative to say that there's a real crisis forming at the border, and it's not a made-up one, kind of like what the media talked about for 4 years. Even though what went on during Trump was a problem, it never quite reached crisis levels, at least not defined by the stats of, how, say, the Obama administration looked at it.
Yeah. They pretty much said 1,000 illegal crossings per day was a crisis.
6,000.
No, we're at 6,000 right now. But 1,000 per day was a crisis, and right now we're encountering 6,000 people. So we're 6 times what the Obama administration called a crisis per day. So there is an absolute crisis happening at the border, guys.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty depressing, and obviously it's only the big numbers are only through February. We don't have anything for March yet, but through February, and assuming that if this is just a spike and everything levels off in a month or two, then it's a different story, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a spike because it only keeps getting worse and worse. In all of 2019, CBP had about 860,000, just shy of 860,000 encounters. This is just through February. This doesn't even include March. Just through February of 2021, we are at 382,000. Now, the funny thing is, in 2020, there was a huge drop-off. So in 2019, it was 860,000, and that was crisis level. You could say that was crisis levels. That was the issue. There was a huge surge. That was when the buses were dropping 60 or 70 people off at a time at the edge of the border, and they just hop over and get arrested, and the caravans and all. And then through a couple of actions, Trump threatening a trade war with Mexico and all this other stuff, and then making people apply for asylum either from their home country or in Mexico, and not doing it in the United States. All of a sudden, it dried up, and you went to 405,000.
So less than half.
In 2020. So 2019 to 2020 got cut in half. On top of this was hundreds of miles of border wall that was constructed.
We also started erecting the wall. Correct. Yep.
And now, in just January and February of 2021, we have almost eclipsed 2020.
Correct. And we're almost to half of the worst year in the last 4 years, which was 859,000. So you're almost to half in 2 months, guys. If you what do you call it, annualize this out.
And we understand that we're not trying to say that this is the prediction. We're just trying to show you a comparative thing for 2 months versus a year. If you annualize this number out.
Yeah, you're at 2.29 million. So 2,295,000.
2.3 million crossing the border.
For the whole year. So again, it's 3 times, what, well, as you were. I'm sorry. What is that? That's 5 times. Right? I have that math in my head right?
Yeah, more than 5.
Yeah, just over 5 times what we had in 2020. So it's insane.
And this, there's a lot of people in here that are just families and people running away from Honduras, and I guess you don't run away from Honduras. I guess it's running away from
you run away from the riffraff. You run away from political, asylum. Political persecution, bad jobs, bad life, or whatever. I get why you would want to come here. But
there's actually known criminals in these, and CBP keeps track of these. When they find somebody that's a known criminal, in 2020 there was 2,438. Now in 2021, we're already at 4,000, over 4,000 already.
Just up through including February. March hasn't even come out yet.
Double of 2020 criminal aliens encountered.
Yep, in only 2 months. And it's not idle gossip. All these stats, guys, came right off the CBP's website. If you don't believe us, by all means, go in there, do your own homework. But criminals without standing warrants, 679. That's just through February. And 2,054 for the whole of 2020. You know, currency seizures. That we were joking. We're in the wrong business. We should go seize some currency here.
Yeah, how do you get into that business? How do you seize currency?
$93 million in 2020. That's all. Like, I don't even know. Like,
I wonder what the TPS reports are on.
There's don't even get me started. It's probably like, we found $1 million. Sir, we found $500,000.
Yeah. Sir, we found 250,000.
So no, I don't doubt that. I do not think that the CBP does that at all. All the guys who I met down there were honorable men and women. But yeah, $93 million in 2020, and in February of 2021, we're already up to $23 million.
Which there's two sides to this, because you got one side that's oh my God, there's a huge surge, but on the other side, I wonder you can't do it right now because the Biden administration's basically blacked out your ability to for CBP agents to talk to the press and give numbers. But I wonder how much more effective CBP is now on certain sections of the border where they can actually interdict much more effectively because of the border barrier that was constructed. Now, one of the biggest areas that's getting hammered right now is called it's quickly called RGV. Acronyms. It's Rio Grande Valley. And it's basically the section, it's from the ocean, where the Rio Grande runs into the ocean there between Texas and Mexico. You've seen it in the news because it's right where it's Boca Chica. That's where SpaceX takes off at.
Yep.
It's right there on the I think the Mexican border is like 2,000 yards behind the rocket. When you're seeing the videos of the rocket flying up, about 2,000 feet behind that's Mexico. But from there up to Falcon Lake, I believe is what it's called. That's what's consistent of the Rio Grande Valley, the Rio Grande Valley sector. And that area has seen a massive influx. And one of the big reasons is because the river is the only thing that is between the two borders. There's no fences. There's no barrier.
No barrier, no nothing. Yeah.
When I was working at the construction company I was working at, it was one of the big areas we looked for work, and it was a very difficult area to build fence in, and one that the Border Patrol very vastly needed. And the wall was built in some places 2 miles off of the river. There was entire swaths of this, and it's all farmland for the most part, or really shitty kind of treed up heavy underbrush. It's a miserable area to try to enforce.
Oh, yeah.
But nonetheless, in the RGV area alone, by itself, they've had 28,000 people in February, and that's just in that section of part of Texas that's undefended.
28,000, gotta love it.
And 24,000 of those were in the last 2 weeks of February alone.
Right.
So it shows that there was this huge surge. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was a huge surge. And
that's because during the presidential debate, I guess Vice President Ben,
former Vice President, houseplant,
Biden was saying, hey, what I would do if I'm president? Surge to the border. He used those words.
All
and if that's
people,
not a dog whistle, if you want to call it. And
we'll play the quote for you, so don't take our words for it. We'll put it up on here after John and I talk here for a sec, but. He literally says one of the things he would do change the administration is surge to the border, and all these people seeking amnesty getting their legal ability to apply for amnesty in the United States.
Right.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
Gee, I wonder why. And then they talk about, rights for illegal immigrants and then paths to citizenship.
Right.
Gee, I wonder why there's a massive surge of people. It just so happened to be the fucking month after the election.
Right. And when I was down there, we were packing up, coming home, all that kind of stuff. One of the CBP agents
for those that don't know, John was one of the guys that had his fucking job canceled by Biden.
Yeah, I had to hand out pink slips to all my men and a handful of women too, and tell them, hey, go figure it out. Yeah, that should be something that fucking President Biden or whoever should have to come down here and do is hand out pink slips to the people whose jobs he cut. But I digress. No, like when you sit back and you think about it, he was I thought he was just venting. I thought he was blowing off steam because we weren't finishing the wall. And it turns out the stats that he was spitting when he was a pretty angry guy, talking about, how many crossings had how dramatically the crossings had gone up and stuff like this. And again, I thought he was being dramatic. And then we came back in here and we read the stats, and if anything, he was underestimating how many extra encounters that he had seen. But yeah, I think this wall, it obviously slows them down, and I think maybe you're seeing an uptick here because it's slowing down. They can't just run and
there's
and
a lot that
scatter.
actually, instead of
they have to.
I mean, I'm throwing a
corrals
number here,
them.
but assume, like, let's say half of them don't ever get caught or counted because nobody even knows they crossed.
They got through, right?
And then, but now it's harder, and more people. If the number never changes, you see actual encounters increase because the border wall is making it more possible to encounter them.
These guys absolutely loved it. There was a dramatic decrease in it when the Trump administration had their rules and regulations in place, but. Like, and it's not all like, you know, we joked about the whole Trump thing in the beginning, you know, with why I assume some people are good people, but no joke, there was 363 gang members, known gang members, guys with tattoos or whatever.
Yeah, mostly MS-13.
Mostly,
not your friendly neighborhood bear.
Yeah, they're not like, you know, they're not gathering, you know, I don't know. They're not helping old ladies across the street, that's for sure. That was in 2020, 363 gang members that they caught coming across. And these guys are mean. In 2021, we've already encountered and detained or whatever 124 of them, gang members. So we're already damn near at half, not quite half, but almost to halfway in February. And that, again, I don't know, we can annualize that one real quick, but we're definitely going to eclipse 363 at this rate if we don't change something at the border, you know.
And it's not like the Biden administration's being any more clear. You know, the head of Department of Homeland Security came out and said, you know, we're not telling you not to come. We're just telling you not to come right now.
What does that mean?
Okay, so no, I'm not going to wait till you have a better wall built and better enforcement systems. I'm going to come now because you just admitted you can't handle it.
Right.
Perfect,
right. If you're a coyote, man, you're making bank right now, guaranteed. But we had, what was it? 10,000, I'm sorry, just shy of 9,500 children, single children, unaccompanied.
Yeah, unaccompanied children
were encountered.
Well,
and detained, held, you know.
You know, back to kind of what you were talking about before with the border agents. When I was doing site visits and talking with these guys, and you'd be looking at this really tough piece of terrain that was, you know, it was just hard to walk around. It was impossible to drive a vehicle around it, or near it. You had to drive way around it.
Up and down.
And the Border Patrol heard that the plan was to put a barrier there, a wall, a 30-foot wall. And you could almost see tears in these guys' eyes because they were so excited of how much better it was going to make their life.
Oh, yeah.
And how much more effective they were going to be because this area was going to be secured finally.
Yeah.
Rather than pissing in the wind like they've been doing for so many years, they were actually going to have an effect and do what they want to do, their jobs, the ones they signed up for, they were actually going to be able to effective and do them.
Yeah.
And all of that's fucking just evaporating now.
You know, when I was down there, I did a quick video on, I call them shorts. I did a little short on the border wall down there. And one of the things I brought up in that little short was I tried to make friends with, well, not friends at least, but introduce myself to the CBP agents that were down there and understand, like, learn their names and hopefully they remembered mine, you know, type of thing. But we went up on top of one of their lookout LPOPs and shook his hand, introduced myself. Hey, this is what we're going to be doing. And he looked at me, like you said, with like this huge, like,
weight was lifted.
Yes, like a weight was lifted. This huge, like, emotional, like, of gratitude or whatever that came over him. He's like, are you going to build the wall all the way across? And he's like staring out, you know, like this ragtag landing mat style fence with big holes and you could literally walk around. And I said, yeah. He's like, is it going to go all the way with no gaps? Like a little kid, you know, like, really? It's going to go? You know, like, I'm exaggerating. It wasn't quite like that. But, I mean, that was the sense of what he was saying. And it was just like, I was like, yeah, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't, you know. But he just, like you said, it was just like this gratitude, like, finally, you know. And his exact words were, we get murdered out here. Like, you know, as far as the crossings, not physically, but there have been a few CBP agents who lost their lives. But he meant just the sheer numeric value of the crossings. So,
and you know, one of the things, it's the word game that politicians play. Trump never played word games. He just said whatever the hell was on his mind, to his own detriment sometimes. But we're back into that world now where everything's political speak and very, very calculated words, and they've absolutely refused to use the word crisis down there. And Brandon Judd, who's the president of the National Border Patrol Council, said And I quote, "A week ago, I would not have called this a crisis. Today, it meets the definition. We are overwhelmed. We do not have the resources to stop the cartels from bringing in illegal aliens, from bringing in drugs. Therefore, we are, in fact, a crisis." So people underneath in the Biden administration are describing that. Jen Psaki, who is going to probably have to circle around because she had to remind herself that she circled around, is going to, not say, she did say it, but then she walked it back. But you can't tell me that the administration doesn't internally see it as a crisis when they've turned on FEMA.
Right.
Who are now building tents to house primarily for just the children. You're not even talking all the other immigrants. You're just talking all the children. Because they realized, hey, we have no idea who these kids are. It would be a bad deal just to turn them loose in the United States when they have no parents, especially when some of them are 1 year old. Yeah. How on God's green earth is a 1 year old considered an unaccompanied minor? I mean, I have ideas. Ideas of how that happened. The kid ain't walking across on his own.
No. He or she's a shield for whatever.
They're with a smuggler, and it's very obvious that it's not. Yeah. That's not their parent. And so all the stuff they attacked Trump for, and it's funny because we get to bring up one of my least favorite people on the planet, AOC. Using words concentration camps and for tent cities and stuff. When the Trump administration was spooling stuff up, trying to deal with issues, exactly like how the Biden administration is. And I am not criticizing the Biden administration for calling in FEMA. They're using national resources to deal with a crisis. Now, it's a crisis of their own creating,
right?
But at the end of the day, you need to deal with it, right? But what I'm doing is calling out the hypocrisy of the political system, that when Trump is doing the right thing and gets attacked, how horrible that is, because it makes people not want to do the right thing. Right. And now that the Biden administration is doing the same thing, those same people are not being critical of it. And it just shows you, everybody talks about AOC as some kind of transformative political figure and how she's the new kind of politician and she's honest. No, she's as crooked, if not more crooked, than the current politicians, because the current politicians are too old to understand Twitter and too old to understand the fucking internet.
Too old to know who your vice president is.
She is not. She knows exactly what she's doing and how to manipulate everything about it. And she's got a bunch of useful idiots that follow her around and retweet the dumb shit she says, most of it lacking any kind of factual basis at all. And we end up in a situation where we're at now.
Right. You're talking, FEMA brought in 110 million just to be able to feed and house?
Yeah, they've got 110 million that FEMA's writing checks to any organization that feeds and houses the illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
And so that usually ends up being like churches and community centers, and each locale does it a little bit different. But hey, here's 110 million. Man, we could have built, 10, 11 miles of wall for that?
Right.
Depending on where you're at, maybe even more.
Right. All they had to do is walk back their comments, But right now the word got spread out. Oh, if you cross now, Biden's going to give you your papers, Or when you see the staged photos of people who supposedly migrated for
they've been
thousands of miles.
They didn't even come from Mexico or the countries just south of Mexico. They crossed like 6 countries.
Right. And
haven't had a shower in 3 weeks, and they've got these perfectly white T-shirts.
They all say Biden, please let me in. And of course, if you look in the background, there's about 1,000 people, but there's only about 20 of them up front, all cropped in.
Signs,
nice and neat,
they're holding signs that say perfect English, and I guarantee they don't have no idea what they're holding.
Heck no. They're being used and abused by the media to portray a narrative, But yeah, I just think it's obnoxious. It wouldn't take much to walk it back, to end that. Just change the policy, and it would change overnight,
In practicality, it wouldn't take a lot, but it would be political suicide for them at this point. I mean, think about it, because of how spooled up and how radical their base is about this stuff. It would be the end.
That's because you're ignorant. That's the bad part, is that the people who feel this way, oddly enough, are white, and not oddly enough are freaking miles and miles away, literally hundreds and thousands of miles away.
Not to mention most of the movie stars pay illegal immigrants to clean their houses and mow their lawns.
Right. Have no idea what hard work is. These guys come over here trying to bust their ass and everything, to have a better life or whatever, but they should do it legally. I've seen... You know what I didn't see when I was down there, and it was under the Trump administration when we went across the border? I saw an orderly line of people trying to migrate to the United States. You know where they were doing it? They were doing it at a legal border crossing. There was a CBP agent there. There was a federale there. Both of them had firearms. Nobody was getting fucked with. It was an orderly process, you know? And yeah, I'm sure it took 100 times longer to go through that line than it would be just to walk around the border fence or the border Normandy barrier. You could just duck underneath it. You know, I'm sure that was like a lot longer, but to do it right, you didn't get hurt.
Yeah,
you know?
and picture this. Picture 2 years ago when the whole media narrative, we're talking about concentration camps and, you know, kids in cages. Who built the cages, Joe? Who built the cages?
Yeah.
You remember that from
right.
the debate,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But
Who built them? Wrong. Again.
Who built them, Joe? But imagine that period of time in media when everything was as hyped up as it was and everybody was as angry at Trump and he was just getting hammered from every direction. And not just Trump, CBP, the heads of CBP, the heads of DHS. And imagine Trump not letting anybody in. No media and no lawyers. None of these lawyers that there was a legal decision called the Flores decision in 1995, I believe, that basically said that lawyers have access, and they're the watchdogs. They're the ones that make sure that
that no one's being mistreated.
And people are having their rights maintained and stuff. Right. That's fine. Since Biden has taken office, there's been not a single media ride-along or access to any of these facilities. There's been no cameras inside of them. And the Biden administration is trying to blame it on fucking COVID.
Oh, yeah.
COVID protocols.
Well,
you know the same COVID protocols that kept news article people from taking pictures during the protests and, you know, all that
mostly
shit.
Peaceful protests,
right,
those ones where they're
mostly peaceful, fiery protests.
Well, fire kills COVID. I don't know what your problem is.
But look, and not the media. None of these lawyers have had access to these children either. Since Biden's taken office, could you imagine? And I'm guessing that most of you that are hearing this right now had no idea that was happening. Yeah. Not that it wasn't just a thing, but that there was a difference. Right. Whereas if the shoes were on the other feet, it would be plastered every article everywhere about how Trump's keeping lawyers away from children because they must be doing something horrible because of it. Where's the outcry now? Right. Where's the human right? Where's the ACLU freaking out for human rights?
Right. And guys, before everyone thinks, well, maybe it's just Fox News who's saying, no. This is NBC. This is CNN complaining that they don't have access. They can't get down there asking the Biden administration what the hell, you know? So this is both sides of the fence here going, hey, how come we can't see what's going on down there? You know, for whatever reason, maybe one wants to prop him up, the other one wants to tear him down, but it doesn't matter. You know, that is a cornerstone of our free speech is freedom of the press. You know, it's right in the First Amendment.
I mean, you've got the Washington Examiner, Town Hall. You've got all these different outlets that are reporting on this, and there's this small little whine right now, and it just shows you how two-faced the media has become as a whole, because the only way this is going to get traction is if the big outlets get a hold of it finally. Or I don't want to say get a hold of it, actually start pushing it. I'm talking, CBS, ABC, the AP and Reuters are being pretty quiet about this. They've reported on it, but there's no big re-reporting everywhere. And again, the ACLU has not weighed in on this yet, which is astounding to me, because they'll get in the middle of a fight in the middle of Wyoming because the city says boys can't play in girls' sports, and the ACLU will jump right in the middle of that. But you've got 10,000 children a month coming across the border, and they're not getting access to by lawyers, and the ACLU doesn't say a peep.
Right, and those are just the ones that made it. Those are the ones that we found. Those are the ones that lived.
And the ones that aren't with other parents, that aren't with parents. And I say parents in quotation marks because I guarantee you there's some of these kids that are with their so-called parents, and they're not actual parents. They're just smugglers.
Right, and that's the whole thing. That's what I was saying earlier. They're a shield, When someone comes over with a 1-year-old, that's what that 1-year-old represents.
Amnesty.
Yeah, free amnesty. Oh, well, they have this 14th Amendment over there, so, why don't you come up and bring your kid and you'll be all right, But, the shit that happens down there, when you go down there and you listen to them talk, it's horrific. It's not, oh, we'll just come to the United States illegally or come to the United States and cross. If AOC gave a damn, why doesn't she take a trip down there?
Why doesn't she go protest and cry in front of a fence again?
Right. Or why doesn't she go down to Guatemala and walk up with this caravan that she loves so much?
Or go
she
convince them not to make the insanely dangerous trip.
Thank you. That's my whole point. I mean, she's encouraging it, and others like her encouraging it by silence. It was her who said, "I will never forget this, because it was this moment I saw with my own eyes that America, The America that I loved was becoming a nation that steals refugee children from their parents and cages them. More kids died after this. To date, no one has been held accountable. We need to save these kids. She tweeted that on 6/24/2019, right? And now where are you now? Where are you now? You know,
she had
this.
It through 2020, she had about 24 tweets, calling people Nazis and concentration camps and kids in cages and blah, blah, blah.
It's basically the same thing.
She's had 2 tweets since Biden's taken office.
Right.
And it's arguably, and not arguably, it's demonstrably worse now than it was in December.
Oh, absolutely. Like, quantifiably, you can go to the CBP website.
FEMA is building fucking tents.
Right.
You know the last time people made a big deal about FEMA? Katrina.
I was going to say, Superdome. Katrina. Yeah. So what happens if there's something else and we've diverted our daggum resources to something that was completely avoidable for something that's unavoidable, like an earthquake?
I guess there was another time people made big... this was one of my favorite... This is pre-QAnon, so this was what all the QAnon idiots believed prior to QAnon being a thing. I remember seeing a post that it was... it was one of those trains where, like, the Army's moving armored vehicles or supply trucks on a train. They're moving across the country on a train. It's just rows of these. And it was during that whole FEMA camp crisis during the Obama administration where, the Obama administration was going to start rounding people up and putting them in FEMA camps and shit. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I don't remember when it was. It was like 2012 or 10 or something. But
we're all going to concentration.
The proof of that was the train full of vehicles that were probably being taken to Southern California where they store them in the desert.
Or to be repainted or whatever. Yeah, like... It's got to be nefarious.
That's the only other time. Besides Katrina, that was the only other time FEMA's been in the news. But now they're building fucking entire tent cities, that Oski and that was the thing. If you guys remember that picture, and we'll put it up for you guys here, of AOC against a fence, completely staged. Now, it wasn't staged in the aspect... The right made it sound like it was totally staged, right? Like there was nothing there. There was tents there. But it was still staged. It was still set up. There was nothing... There weren't children being fed to dogs or, ripped away from their parents in bloody fashion. It was a tent city she could see from like 200 yards away. Probably couldn't even tell what was going on. But it made a good photo op for her to pretend to cry and hug people. And
But remember Baby AOC, that little 8-year-old girl?
Oh, that was so good. It was great till they started getting death threats. And had to stop doing
take her down,
God forbid you have a little humor in your life.
Oh, God. When she was like... Anyway, that little girl was pretty hysterical.
She's got a career in the future.
Oh, yeah. She does.
If Tina Fey could play fucking... what's her face? Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin. She could definitely play AOC all day long. This is like the real deal when you go down there, and again, this is stuff I never knew until I went down there and started talking to some of these folks. But when these guys come across, they spend exorbitant amounts of money to give to these coyotes across the especially if they're coming across during the summertime,
and the cost to our social services alone.
But I'm saying like just to get here, so they haven't even like impacted the United States yet. This is the impact to them and why it shouldn't be encouraged for them to hurry up and bum rush the border or whatever.
Right.
Say again?
Said right.
Yeah. So, again, the coyotes take their money, drop them off at a place like Campo and go, hey, that's LA. That's LA over there. And these poor guys don't know any difference because they're from Honduras or something, right? So they that looks like LA. Great, let's go. And they get promptly captured by, CBP and sent right back. So like they spent all this money. And then to hear the stories, I mean, the things that happen to the women, the things that happen to the children across there. And what do? The coyotes come in pairs and they have guns, and these poor immigrants that are coming across Mexico don't have weapons. So what do you do as a guy when you're seeing your wife getting raped or your daughter getting molested or whatever? What do? You stand up and then you die, and now they kill them both?
Or they kill everybody.
They kill everybody, So, I mean, like, at that point, you're in a shit sandwich and you got to take a bite, But, we're not going to talk about any of that kind of stuff and what happens to these poor people or how many lost dehydration or get sick and die along the way. But we're going to encourage this behavior. We're going to say, yeah, come on up. It's bullshit. AOC, where are you on this? Why are you quiet? Why are you quiet?
Not to mention all the complaints about the COVID vaccines and not having enough and people this, and now you've got entire populations of people that are requiring the COVID vaccine. And half of them, we don't even know if they were sick. You got cities that are small towns that are being completely overwhelmed because they're just getting all of these immigrants dumped on them in Texas, and they have no idea what to do with them. They have no idea if these people have of COVID. They haven't been tested because they can't test them because CBP can't hold them long enough to test them. They've got all these restrictions on how long they can hold people, and it's right back to catch and release again. You catch them, you write their name down or the name they tell you.
Oh, please come to court on your day.
And you tell them to show up on court, and then...
And they disappear. They pull a Kaiser Soze.
Less than 10% of them ever show up again.
They're gone, yeah. Way less than 10%. It was like 1% or something, wasn't it?
I don't remember. The percentage... I mean, how do you know what the actual percentage is? Because it's always a fluctuating number of people, right? They could show up 3 years later, and that gets counted in the percentage, but does that really count? They showed up 3 years later after they were supposed to show up. Oh, yeah, I forgot about my court date.
That's because they got pulled over for running a stoplight. And
yeah.
And the police officer was like, oh, by the way, you're here illegally.
I can't do anything to you about it because we live in a sanctuary city.
Right. Carry on. Like, bienvenidos a los Estados Unidos. But I don't know. So yeah, we'll post the pictures of before and after, like where she was crying at the border here, and then we'll post the next one after where you can kind of have a wider angle of her in the frame and you don't really see much in the background. I mean, it wasn't like she stumbled across and liberated Auschwitz, okay? She was watching tents.
Made it look like that.
Right. So, I don't know what horrors she saw. It looks like there's a car in the background. Maybe she's upset about the car.
She got a dirt stain on her white clothes.
She was down there wearing all white. Yeah. Sand in her eyes? Dust?
That's probably what it is. Yeah.
It's the desert. I don't know. But, anyway.
And just overall, it's a real sad deal because it's preventable. It's not something that didn't have to happen this way. But in the process of getting elected as a Democratic president, it's the race to be the biggest idiot. I mean, that's all the Democratic debates were, to be the race to be candidate. It was a race to the bottom. It was a race, in my opinion, the bottom. It was a race to who could have the most far left agenda, who could pander to the most people. It wasn't anything real policy. It was just all talk. They had no intention of instigating half of the shit they said because you can't actually make it happen. But if you say the dumbest shit, you get put on the front news of the media. You get a little bit more traction, and
more people might vote for you. Yeah.
It sucked. Somebody who's supposedly a moderate into this far left sphere of just crap crap sandwich, however you want to describe it, made up words, but it's
across the board. It's with taxes, it's with immigration, it's with spending money we don't have, it's with shutting down oil lines and shutting down construction jobs and going, we don't know why unemployment went up. It was Trump's fault.
Yeah, I mean, we're canceling jobs in the United States, but we're encouraging hundreds of thousands of people a month, to cross the border with promises of a better future, when all that's going to happen is you're going to end up turning the United States into a third world country.
Yeah, the whole thing will collapse in and on itself, and maybe that's by design. Maybe that's what they want,
Yeah, and I don't think there's an accident to it. They can talk about how it's bad and these poor people and this, that, and the other, but I think it's 100% desired, and it's not just by it's not just by the Democrats. It's by big business too. That's why big business supports all of these immigration, because it's tons of cheap labor.
Oh yeah, of course.
Tons of cheap labor. This is one of the biggest problems I had with like the Koch brothers and stuff like that, or the Koch brothers. Yeah. Is that they lobbied for a lot of this open borders shit, and so did Bush. Bush did too. All the amnesty, all the shit that came from that was to help big business. And at the end of the day, that's all you're doing with this. Is you think the left would hate the big business and they'd want to hurt them. Well, if you want to hurt them, fucking seal the border up tight and make wages go up because you don't have a flood of cheap labor.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if you like going to the grocery store and buying affordable blueberries, mostly any kind of affordable produce, in some form or another, you're supporting slave labor. Because that's what it is at the end of the day. These are jobs. Everybody says these are jobs that Americans don't want to do, right?
Which is bullshit.
It's jobs that Americans don't want to do for $1 an hour.
Right.
And that's what's happening, is you're able to pay these immigrant workers far less, which keeps the costs of it. And I'm not saying the farmers are raking in bank. That's not what's going on. But they can't compete.
But that defines the problem right there. Like, who are they going to complain to? Oh, what are you going to do? Go up to a cop and be like, you know what? He stole my pot. Well, okay, outside of Oregon, are you going to go up to a cop and say, you know, he stole my crack? So like, and this is the same concept here. They can get away with it because they're unprotected because they're here illegally.
Well, and on the other side of it, they can't be competitive without it. When I was even here in Montana, building houses back in, this is in the boom in 2006, 2007, before the crash, there was when we were building our houses, the guys that came and drywalled my house were illegal aliens, 1,000%. Didn't speak a word of English. They all came in the same van. They all cooked lunch together, and they all lived with each other. And they were great. They fantastic workmanship. They put up drywall fantastically. And the guy that owned the business, I started giving a hard time over it. I was pretty pissed off because it was my house they were building, and I was like, I don't want to support. This is not right, dude. And he's like, I understand, man. He's like, but I can't have a business here. He's like, if there isn't a single drywall operation in town right now that doesn't use illegal immigrants. And he's like, if I use standard labor, I won't ever get a job again. Yep. I won't, because they're just going to pay the lowest bidder. And the lowest bidder uses illegal, and everybody just turns a blind eye to it.
Oh yeah. Nope, I learned that when I was in college. A friend of mine, Gilly, her and I were going to start a painting business. We got our asses kicked on like a couple of bids, and it was like, how? Like, they're not paying their taxes, or they're not paying this, or not paying that. It's not a level playing field when you try to do it legit. In construction. So I totally get it. And then growing up on the farm, like you had, Hispanic labor. We paid all our guys above board.
Well, it happened in Vegas. You literally go to Vegas and you wanted the most wild time of your life, drive a rental U-Haul by Home Depot in anywhere in Henderson or Vegas. You would get mobbed by people that were looking for work.
Yeah.
And the Henderson Home Depot wasn't like that.
Like, they would kind of hang out in the back, and if you needed labor, you'd go up there,
And it would just be for a day rate. You pay them, hey, $50 for the day, and they basically do whatever you needed them to do.
Right, and they understood it was day labor. They understood it was cash under the table, and they were ready,
happy, and they were happy to do it.
Right, and those are the folks that you're like, hey, welcome to the United States. You're busting your ass. I understand what you're saying, and it is illegal. I know I'm kind of on both sides.
Yeah, I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just
it's
the world we live in. That's the situation.
Right, that's reality.
And at the end of the day, you bring more people into this situation. It doesn't make things better. It only makes it worse.
Right. Well, Trump had it right. We need to employ Americans. We need to have be America first.
One of the biggest places crime survives is in communities that are impoverished.
Again, because they're unprotected.
Well, and not just because they're unprotected, because they're desperate. It doesn't matter if it's good opportunity or bad opportunity. If somebody provides opportunity to you when you are starving, you're going to do whatever the fuck it takes, especially if you're providing for your family.
Or somebody comes in and they're like, oh, you know what? If you don't do this, I'm going to go to the cops. I want 10% or whatever it is of your earnings. It's just all together bad. What they need to do is seal up the border. Like you and I were talking about this earlier, my idea with amnesty, I say that word and I get shunned, but if you seal up the border and you understand who's here, who's a criminal, who's not, all that kind of stuff, I'm all for it. Sign them up, take their fingerprints, give them a green card, maybe give them some sort of a non-monetary penalization, like they can't vote for the next 4 years or something, and then tax them, make them like us, make them like you, make them like me, put them a part of our system. You want to take from the system, you have to give to the system 100%, not just when you buy a tank of gas or when you buy a television, but all the way across, just like the rest of us. But I think it's cheaper to do that than it is to deport them and then deport them again. And
these are incredibly difficult problems. And I think sometimes people look at people in Congress as these great people that are going to figure a lot. I mean, from what I can tell, there's very few actually intelligent people in Congress anymore, or the Senate. They might be smart, but they're not wise. I go back and forth on Nancy Pelosi, whether she's smart or she's an idiot, because it's so hard to tell anymore, because I think she's had a couple of strokes. But at the end of the day, you don't get where Nancy Pelosi is by being an idiot. But on the same token, she's not intelligent about half the shit she speaks about. She doesn't know what she's talking about when it comes to guns. She has no idea what she's talking about when it comes to business.
Oh, no.
Or
who her constituents are.
Yeah. I mean,
don't get me started about that interview.
The best people used to be our politicians that used to be able to solve this shit. And right now, I don't know how this gets solved with the current state of politics, because you're either a Nazi for trying to stop it and, fix the problem, or you're a compassionate, you love everybody and you're compassionate because you want more cheap labor, so your produce stays cheap, or your nanny is cheap, or you're gonna pay your nanny $30,000 a year in LA.
Or we're giving them way too much credit and they don't realize any of that, and they're just like, no, we need to have open borders just for the sake of feeling good, and they have no idea what the impact is.
Yeah.
I think anybody who's got an IQ, an intelligent understanding of how the United States works and how money works isn't there. They're in business. They're doing it for themselves.
And it shows right now, because the House just passed 2 bills. And it's just shows you how blind they are to the issue, because you have a huge migrant crisis right now. And they just passed 2 bills that are going to do nothing but encourage more people to come. They passed 1 bill for the Dreamers, DACA, it's to give them a legal path to citizenship. And then they passed another bill for basically migrant farm workers that allows the illegal ones, the ones that aren't here legally, to apply for work, even though they broke the law and they're not supposed to be able to. Now they're going to be able to apply for worker status.
Right.
Them and their families and their kids. And these are just 2 bills that they've obviously been cooking up for months and months before this.
Oh, yeah.
But it just shows you how tone deaf they are, that you have hundreds of thousands of people being displaced and harmed by this trip. And they're going to pass 2 bills that are only going to encourage more to make the trip.
Yep. It's just obnoxious. Again, when you go down there and you see like that kind of chaos, and then you go to like the legal spot, like I said, and everything's orderly, I don't understand why they don't encourage one behavior over the other. It's because they're hypocrites. So I don't know. Maybe we could probably close on that.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap her up there.
But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know Tyler and I had some fun putting this one together. We'll put some pictures of AOC up there, fake crying, and links. So if you guys like what you see, let us know. Please make all the comments you want. We'll respond. And like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. That really helps us. We want to build this thing out and keep doing this stuff, and bring more to you. So with that, guys, good night. Semper Fi.
Good night. Appreciate it.